Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be doing a book haul. As you can see, I've got quite a stack next to me. I think my last book haul was back around my birthday, which is the end of October. And since then I've been pretty good at not buying too many books, like buying maybe 1 or 2 books a month until the Dutch book week rolled around. And I got a whole bunch of books. I'm gonna go through them pretty quickly, I think. So let's just get into them. The first 2 books are 2 books I had to read for the BookTube prize for the round we are currently in. I have already read both of them, and they were Witness by Jamal Brinkley and August Blue by Deborah Levy. I'm not going to tell you anything about these books right now. I'm making a video about my BookTube prize reading, which will come out at the end of the month or maybe like early April. So look out for that. Then I got a book which I won in a giveaway. A Bookstagrammer launched a newsletter. And they gave away a book to one lucky winner, and that is Amputation by Olga Tokarczuk. This is the Dutch translation. I'm not entirely sure if the English translation is out yet, but I'll leave it up somewhere in the screen if it has. This is kind of a feminist retelling, probably not retelling, more like a answer to The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann, which I haven't read, and I'm still debating whether I should read that before I'll read this, but that will be quite an undertaking, so I might not. I haven't read any Olga Tokarczuk yet, but she is an author that's been on my radar, and this book looks really interesting as well, so that's that one. Then I also got something completely different, a non-fiction book, How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith. The subtitle is A Reckoning with the History of Slavery Across America. This got quite a bit of buzz when it first came out a few years ago, and I think it's like a history of slavery in America, but it looks at it from different locations in the States. So the author visits different locations and in that way like constructs a narrative around that history. Yeah, so that sounds really interesting. Then we've got Sula by Toni Morrison. I love Toni Morrison's work, and this was just the next one that I wanted to read by her. Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with her, so that's Sula by Toni Morrison. I also picked up Fiona and Jane by Jean Chen Ho. This I found in my local bookstore when they were having a sale. Usually when there's a sale on, you really have to like look through the books to find something, because there's not often that many interesting things, interesting books in there, but this one really grabbed my attention. I think I heard about it on Kendra's channel, or maybe Mercedes, or maybe both. It's a book of interlinked short stories, which, as you know, is one of my favorite things. So yeah, I hope I'll really enjoy this one as well. Then another book I was really excited about is The Night Alphabet by Joelle Taylor. She actually came to our local library to speak a few days ago, which was really amazing. Usually when international authors come to the Netherlands, they would go to Amsterdam or Rotterdam, or like one of the big cities. So to have her visit like our small town and have like a free event at the library. She is a poet, and she does spoken word poetry. So she performed some of her poems, and then also talked a bit about this book. And she also talked a lot about queer history, specifically in London. She's a lesbian, she identifies as butch, and she talked a lot about like clubbing in the 80s in Soho in London, and what queer culture was like in that time, and yeah, it was just really, really interesting, and I really liked meeting her. This book, The Night Alphabet, is her first novel. I think this is also sort of interlinked short stories. It's about a woman who's like covered in tattoos, and like every tattoo tells a different story. But I think it's also like a dystopian, speculative kind of story. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure of the plot, but that's fine. Recently Ben Reads Good also talked about this book. I really loved it, so yeah, I'm super excited to get into The Night Alphabet as well. And then the rest of the books are all the books I got for Dutch Book Week. So these are all books in Dutch, both from Dutch and Belgian authors, as well as books that have been translated from other languages. Some of these have also been translated into English or like other languages, so I think I'll just link down below all the books and whether I could find any translations. So yeah, the first book is the Book Week gift. So every year we have Book Week, and then an author gets invited to write a short novella around a certain theme. This year the theme was family, and they actually asked a writing family to write the Book Week gift book. The success of the Book Week gift is usually very mixed. Sometimes they have really, sometimes they're really good, but then I've also read some like quite poor books. And what I've heard from this one, it isn't that good either, but hey, it was free. So that is Gezinsverpakking by the Shabbat family. Probably translate as like family-sized packing. I have no idea what it's about. I know that, you know, obviously it's written by an entire family, 2 parents and all their children, and this is their dog. So at least it's got a cute cover. Then I've got this book, which is actually a translation from an English book. And I think the English title is Falling Angels. No, Falling Animals, excuse me. I always find it really interesting when for a title they don't translate the title into Dutch, but they have something completely different, because this title would probably translate as something like There's a Stranger in All of Us. So that gives up a completely different vibe as Falling Animals. So yeah, this is translated from the English by Connie van der Velde. I heard about this on Jen Campbell's channel. And this is about a man who is found dead on a beach, and you kind of hear his story and how he ended up there through like a chorus of people. I'm guessing maybe it's sort of interlinked stories as well, where you hear all these different voices telling their story around this man, and that way it kind of unravels the story. I don't often read books that are translated from English to Dutch. I'm starting to do that a little bit more. I read the first page of this book and I thought it was really beautiful. So yeah, I think the translation is done really well, at least judging from that first page. So that's that one. The next one is a book by a Danish author. The title would translate as All of This Could Be Yours. The author is Josephine Klaugaard. Not sure how you pronounce that. And the translation is by Michael van Zel, translated from the Danish. From what I gather, this is a family saga with a focus on nature writing as well. In the back it says this author could be described as the Scandinavian Virginia Woolf. So I'm guessing the writing style will be quite stream of consciousness. I love that in Virginia Woolf, but I haven't loved that in every book that has that style of writing. So I'm very curious how this will work out for me. Some Dutch bookstagrammers have loved this book, and I usually trust their taste, so I think this will be a good one. And then I've got a couple of books where I've sort of been discovering some Dutch indie publishers. I think in the Netherlands, because the language is smaller, the publishing industry is also smaller, so you don't actually have that many like big publisher like you have in the English speaking world, and like the same thing I said in my last video about translated works. It's very common to see a lot of translated books within a general fiction section, and in the same way it is also very common to see a lot of indie publishers when you go to a bookstore. So yeah, I've been sort of discovering more Dutch publishers and just trying to get a feel of what kind of books they publish. So I've got two by the publisher Kose, which has these little fish on the bottom. The first one is Dagen van Glas, or Days of Glass, by Eva Meijer. She had a book published in English a few years ago that I've seen around a bit on BookTube, which was The Bird Cottage. This is another one of her novels, and this I completely picked up because of Bookstagrammer's recommendations. I've seen a lot of people give this 5 stars, and that is the only reason why I picked it up, because like the cover isn't something that necessarily would appeal to me. The blurb on the back is one of those very non-specific blurbs that doesn't really tell you anything about what the book is about, so I couldn't tell you what this book is about. I'm picking this up completely on other people's recommendations, but I think that is a perfect way to pick up a book. So that is that one, and then this one I picked up because the cover kind of intrigued me. I'm not sure if I like it, but it did pull my eye. This is one of these authors that has been rediscovered. She was born in the Netherlands and then I think moved to the United States just before or during World War II. She's a Jewish author. I think, I'm not entirely sure now actually. I'll put it on the screen if I'm right or wrong. This is about 2 women who decide to rent an apartment in Amsterdam, like just before the Second World War. It was first published in 1954 in the Netherlands, and then the English translation was published in 1963. But yeah, I'm very keen to read a lesbian novel from the 50s and 60s, and yeah, hoping to find like a hidden gem in this book. Another publisher that I've been looking at was Uitgeverij Pluim, which has these, recognized from this. From what I gather, they're sort of the publisher where all the cool female authors are right now. Like sort of the next generation, I feel, are there. The first one I've got is lotgenoten. I cannot think of the English word for this right now, but I'll put it on the screen. This is written by Sabrina Ingabire. She is a Rwandan Belgian author, and yeah, I think this book is about being a second generation immigrant and like modern society and her place in this society. So yeah, definitely something I am interested in, and again looking forward to reading this book. And then I've got What I'd Rather Not Think About by Jens Postma. If that sounds familiar, it is now longlisted for the International Booker Prize. Obviously this is the original Dutch title. Again, this is another book that I don't know that much about. I know it's about twins. I think they have plans to move to New York for a while and like to live in New York for a little while, until one of them suddenly decides they kind of want to break contact with that twin. What it's like for the other one when their like only constant factor in their life suddenly isn't there anymore. I've read one other book by this author before, which was about witches and like connecting witch hunting to modern feminism and how a lot of women of today would be seen as witches if they were born a couple of 100 years ago. So this is a very different topic, but I do like her writing style. So yeah, hopefully I'll like this one as well. Then we've got this book, which is the latest book by Hannah Bervoets. Hannah Bervoets is probably most internationally known for her book We Had to Remove This Post, and that book was actually the Bookweek gift a few years ago. I didn't actually read that one, but I have read one of her short story collection, which I really loved. This is quite a chunky book. I think it's nearly 600 pages, and on the back it says it's a family saga without blood ties, so I think it's about found family. It's also about chronic illness. I think the main character in this book has a chronic illness herself, or she helps people who have an illness that hasn't been diagnosed yet. I believe Hannah Bervoets has a chronic illness herself. I know it's a theme that comes back in a lot of her work as well. So yeah, even though it's quite chunky, I am still very keen to read this one. And then the last 4 books are all from the same publisher as well, which is Meridian Uitgeverij. They kind of came onto my radar because they translate Claudia Pinheiro's work into Dutch, and so I started looking into them, and I saw that they publish a lot of interesting translated work. So yeah, these were 4 books I picked out by them. The first one is Slechte Gewoontes or Bad Habits by Alana S. Portero, who is a trans author. This is translated from the Spanish by Annette van der Heijden and Alisa Sebes. I think this is one of those more autofiction kind of books. This is a coming-of-age story about the main character growing up in a working-class family in Spain in the 80s and 90s, discovering she's a transgender woman. Obviously a very, very interesting read, hopefully. And then we've got this one, which I picked up purely from the cover. It is also translated from the Spanish, I think, yeah, by Brigitte Coopmans, and she is from, and the author is from Colombia. I think the first sentence of the blurb intrigued me because it says that she lives in a flat that is so crowded by plants that she almost suffocates from it. So yeah, I think it's about family dynamics, about a family almost breaking apart, and then like all the plants in this flat just makes it a really intriguing setting. So yeah, that's that one. Then I've got another one that might look familiar. This is De Vrouw op den Berg by Eva Meijer, and this is actually a bind-up of permafrost boulder and the latest installment in that trilogy, which I think in English is called Mammoth, and I'm not entirely sure if that last part is out yet. This is translated from the Catalan by Irene van der Meen, and this book really shows how much attention I pay to booktubers, but because I've heard so many people talk about this book, but I could not really tell you what it's about. I also don't really know how these three books fit together. I know it's a queer story, I know there's an element of motherhood and, you know, wanting to have kids, not being able to, how that works in a relationship. I'm very curious to read this as like a bind up and you know, read the three books together and see how they connect. So yeah, that's that one. And then we've got our last book for today, and that is Rosarium by Charlotte Weitze. This is another book translated from the Danish. This is a book that I picked up because of the cover, but then the blurb really intrigued me because it's about a brother and a sister. They are literally called brother and sister with like capital letters, and they live in a war. They live during a war. It doesn't get specified which war this is, and they are left by their parents, and the brother, he hunts for game and food, and sister, she nestles in a tree and she actually starts growing roots and like becomes part of the tree. So there's obviously some magical realism in this book, and that really intrigued me. So yeah, I'm very curious about this book. It is another one that is quite chunky. I think it's about 500 pages, so quite a chunky book. But that premise sounds really interesting. So yeah, those are all the books I got in the last couple of months. I'm not going to lift them up because that's just asking for trouble. Again, I will write down all the titles down below, and I'll look if there's any translations available. Not wanting to sound like a broken record, but I am really excited about this stack, and really keen to get into some of these books sooner rather than later. If you've heard of any of these books, if you are interested in any of these books in particular, talk to me about them in the comments or anything else you want to talk about today. That's it for today. I hope I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.